to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. First thing on the agenda is our auditor's financial report. Okay, oops. The report, of course, is in the packet, and hopefully I'm going to find the first part of this for the screen. We began 2021 with a general fund cash balance of $14,988,895, with miscellaneous revenue, property tax, taking out some estimated circuit breaker. Our total funds available is $66,739,081. We deduct the encumbrances, the budget, and the minimum balance, and add back in what we anticipate is unused budget. Our beginning net balance beginning of the year for the general fund was $6,120,963. So far this year, we've approved additional appropriations of $1,456,011. We have requests today of $195,411, so our balance, or uncommitted balance right now, is $4,603,501. The next page, where we look at the revenues, and I didn't really see anything of any note. We're a third of the way through the year, and property taxes of Jennifer's got most of them collected, but those will not show up until the end of June is when it's going to be deposited into the individual funds. And so with the tax side, you're only at 9.4%, but that is kind of deceptive because with property taxes in there, such a big chunk. I'm not really sure I had anything of note all the way through here on the revenue side. With the funds, I don't have a lot to mention here either. Fund 1000 is a general fund, and we're a little bit more than $5 million cash balance at the end of April, which is under the $7.5 million minimum balance, but that's not of any concern at this point. The next fund that I had marked was 4710, which is the county health insurance fund, and we did receive more in revenue than what we spent out in claims this month, so we're a little bit more than $9 million of cash balance right there. 4986 is just a little recap, is the rainy day fund for when we have the CARES money. We put $3 million into there so that when income taxes were going to be less than what we had been seeing in the past, we could supplement that to bring that up. And I want to mention that it's the only thing I have in my funds, I think. This is not in the packet, but up on the screen. The end of last week, we received notice of a special distribution of lit money, which we have received this for the last couple years. This is probably the last one of these we're going to receive for a couple years, I would guess, with the COVID impact. And so this is the balances that the state is holding at the end of 19. So this was pre-pandemic. And so up here you can see the certified shares, $411,282. This is what normally is put into the general fund. The economic development is $330,456. That will be put into the EDIT fund, and this is just our share. The other ones are everybody else's. And one thing I wanted to maybe encourage is that for me to not put this $411,000 into the general fund, but rather put this into that lit rainy day fund for use, and we can pull that out at any point in time. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of need to supplement the general fund cash right now, because we will get what was certified to us. So if that is agreeable, once we do receive the money and we distribute it, we will put it into there. If there's any comments about that? Any objection to that?
What's the advantage of putting it in lit?
Well, it might help us when we're doing the budget in the next couple years, because this year's budget is set. I mean, we've got it pretty much balanced. We go into next year, we don't know what lit is going to look like in 2022. So if we don't really need the money now, so we could kind of set it aside. We could pull it out this year if you still wanted to do that once we put it into this fund. But it just seems like this budget is set. This is basically bonus money. And so let's just set that aside. We may pull that out for the '22 budget. You know, we got $3 million there that we don't want to hold that, you know, for long term, but whenever when we think we're through the COVID income tax crisis, then we should have this money used up by that time. So is that, and I don't really care, but that just seemed like there's not a real advantage to put it into the general fund, that we might as well hold on to it until we think we need it. When lit goes down, we can pull this supplemental out.
I think long-term, when we get more comfortable with the lit income over its first few years, we'll have an opportunity to even combine our rainy day funds as we've done in the past with our normal rainy day. But for now, I think putting it in a rainy day somewhere and not in general would be prudent, whether it be this one or the other one. Or, you know, I think it's just us to decide and tag.
Yeah. This one is, this rainy day is only income taxes, so it just kind of puts it all in the same bucket, so.
Yeah.
So you think at some point we should probably look at, maybe a year now, looking at all of our different buckets of money and figuring out a way to put them all?
Well, over the last number of years, we did some combining
Okay.
on our rainy day fund. And so once we get more comfortable with the lit income, we can look at everything.
And lit's been a pretty good increase over the last 20, 30 years, you know, and now this is the first little blip in the whole thing. And so I'm not sure how much we're going to need of the 3 million, but yeah, I think we could put it all into the other rainy day fund and at some point in time.
But I was specifically speaking about the public safety income tax
Oh.
addition and how
Oh.
that's going to level off and we'll see what's going on with that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Bob?
Yeah,
Comments?
I do.
Just a quick reminder, remember to click your microphones on when you're talking. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
Want to
Can
repeat all that?
can you hear me, Bob? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Got a question on Fund 4710, where we have a minimal balance of $500,000.
Yeah.
We've been kind of trending over 9 million,
Yeah.
8.5 million to the good. What are we searching for, 100 million or what?
Well, we haven't raised employee insurance rates since 2016. And so, you know, we don't want to lower the rates in really, because we think the claims are going to catch up with where our rates are eventually. The
Right.
$500,000 was set
What tells you
a
that?
number of years ago.
What tells you the claims are going to catch up?
Just that's how history has been. Health
Historically.
insurance expenses are going up, and maybe we've done some things to keep those from going up, whether that's the clinic or some of the other programs that we've had. But eventually, if we don't raise our revenue, our expenses are going to catch up with that and past that. So it's obviously not a concern that we have now, but you know, you never want to start seeing the cash balance go down on a regular basis, and it doesn't take much.
No, you don't, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's trending. I mean, you got $8.5 million there just sitting there, and if you do get in trouble, you got dog food money, $3 million or whatever you got in rainy day. You move
Yeah.
money around anytime.
And that is, that we have health insurance rainy day, which is really kind of included in
I
there.
see
So we
that,
really
yeah.
have like $12 million sitting there. So we're very, very fortunate that we're in good shape, health insurance-wise.
So we do nothing about it, right? Just let her keep growing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's pretty much stayed flat, or maybe a little bit lower than when we started the year. I don't remember. It's about flat, because we've had a few down months and we've had a few decent months.
Yeah.
And we took money out of it last
Right,
year.
right, we've taken
We-
$1 million
We were taking
out
money,
for
$1
the
million
last
out of that
couple
to put
years.
into the general fund.
Yeah, I just thought I'd just raise a concern in case we get in a crossroad there where we need a
Yeah, it
little
is a
guide.
good concern that you've got money in your health insurance, that we could do something if we
That's my
if we
point.
needed to.
Any other questions?
Well, I agree with John. You don't want the thing growing forever, but, there are things we can do with the premium program that the employees pay, and if it starts getting out of control, but we certainly don't want to get into that situation where we zero it out like we were many years ago, so.
Well, I just think we're taxed to death, that's all. And I see all this money here, over here, abundance here and abundance there. It's not because it's May the 10th, it's just that,
But none of this money,
I
it comes from the general fund, supporting the insurance, which is really tax money,
I
but
know,
a
but
lot of it's coming
Joe
from
Blow sat
employees.
down there at the donut shop, he doesn't understand that.
Sure.
Thanks,
And it
Bob.
wasn't that many years ago where we did have a negative end-of-the-year balance in, since I've been auditor, and this is only my seventh year, so within the last 6 years, it's gone up a lot.
Right.
But it can go down just as quickly.
Could be the mask.
Okay.
Could be the mask.
If nothing else, Jennifer, Treasurer's Report.
Good morning.
Marty?
The interest report is for April, and still nothing very exciting on the interest front, but we did have $61,128.43. The majority of that interest for April was a jumbo CD that we had mature, earning $31,500. And the rate that came back for reinvestment on that was 0.25%, so we just ended up putting that into our general savings account at 0.35%. So that's why you would see the Centier Bank balance up at the top at 10.7. Staley Credit Union, the balance today is $575,918, which I believe is a record for them. All they do is collect the property tax for us. And speaking of that, yesterday was the deadline. I don't have a lot of comparisons or numbers looked at yet, but our collection rate is approximately what it was 2 years ago. I'm not really looking at last year because the penalty deadline was extended to July, and so I don't have apples to apples there, but we're about 5% down with 4 tubs to post. We had 2 tubs to post last time, so I would say we're about even where we should be. We did have a lot of walk-ins the past week, a lot more than what I thought we would. A lot of people were anxious to get out and do something, see people, I guess. But when I looked at our online collections, last year, even through July, we were at 10.9 million, and as of yesterday, we were at 11.6. So the online collections still continue to grow. Other than that, general fund is tracking at $159,089 in interest, which is 18.2% of where we expected the budget to be, but I think with the collection and by the mid-year, we should be at our 50% mark, so don't have anything else to report.
Any questions for Jennifer? If not,
All right,
thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is public comment on any of our agenda items for this morning. Hearing none, we're going to move on to our compliance with statement of benefits for Apex Warehouse and Logistics LLC. Do I have a motion for that? We have 3 statements, by the way.
I'll make a motion for the compliance of the Apex Warehouse and Logistics LLC CF1 real property.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Vernon to approve the compliance with statement of benefits for Apex Warehouse and Logistics LLC real property. We've got 3 forms. Comments? Welcome. All right.
As far as everything pretty much status quo from years past. Nothing terribly new to report. If you have any questions, we have to take.
Any questions about the statements?
Seeing a lot of shaking of heads no, so I'm assuming that there aren't any additional questions or comments. Thank you for being here. If there's no additional questions, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda with the minutes of our April 13th meeting included. Anything that needs to be pulled from the consent agenda before we approve it? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
Seeing that everything's in place, I would move that we accept the consent agenda as the scribe has put forth.
I second that.
Okay, got a motion on the floor from Councilman Basham, a second from Councilman Murray to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next up, we have Commissioners COVID Fund 8901 appropriation.
I thought that was part of the consent agenda.
Is that part of the consent agenda? I'm sorry. I got down on the wrong page. I guess we got the sheriff next. Fund 4127.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Vernon, a second from Councilman Richard to approve the donation fund 4127 for the sheriff appropriation of $5,000. Discussion.
Yeah, what this is, we recently received a grant for a few PBTs, portable breath test instruments, and I gotta remove this. A person I know reached out and said they had some other funds, they'd like to donate some money to purchase more. So they gave us $5,000 a couple weeks ago, so we can purchase 11 PBTs, which will help us tremendously. That's where this money will go.
Okay. Any questions for the sheriff? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you. Next up, we have Community Corrections Salary Statement.
I'll make a motion, we approve the Community Corrections 2021 salary statement as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilman Richard, to approve the Community Corrections 2021 salary statement as presented. Discussion.
Morning.
Hi, Jason.
If you recall, the first part of this year, we received a very sizable grant for the Prison Break Elimination Act to become a certified, recertified facility. Part of that grant allows us to, at a corrections officer position, pay through the grant and half through our user fees. This is a grant-funded position that would expire December of 2022, at what point we would either come before you for alternate funding, seek another grant, or that position would be eliminated. So it would be guaranteed just through December of 2022. Answer any questions?
Any questions concerning that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Next up, we have coroner additional appropriation.
I'll make a motion that you approve the general fund appropriations for the coroner in the amount of $100,000 autopsies, $73.81 institutional or medical, $10,000 other wages, $19.20 other professional services, $765 Social Security for a total request of $120,066.
I second that.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Vernon, a second from Councilman Murray, for the additional appropriation for the coroner for $120,066. Discussion. Good morning.
So what we're running into, and I've sent out a monthly report for the last 4 months, we're really increasing the number of tests that are reported to us by 61%. We are now accepting almost 77% more. We have reached accepted to date, I think it's 200, so this is even behind what I sent out last week. Which then leads to our autopsies that we have to do. We average about 40% of our accepted cases in autopsies. So it's about just shy of $40,000 a month is what we spend in not increasing deputy pay, but increasing cases that are causing us to go out more, which is causing us to do more deputy, pay the deputies on cases. And other professional services, thanks to the commissioners, we are moving out of pen and paper at the scene after 20-some years of being in the coroner's office, and they bought, see, you know what's really interesting? Thank you, Bob. I met with Tony this morning. I said, Tony, you have to tell me how to turn that mic on, because I know y'all had trouble last time. And look at me. Thanks, Bob. So do I need to repeat any of that prior stuff on the autopsy? Okay. And then the last thing was the tablets that they purchased as 8 tablets, so that other professional services is the Wi-Fi that we have to do, which will be a reoccurring cost that we'll build in next year. So, any questions?
Any questions?
So a couple questions.
Yes.
How would you characterize the percentage of your workload that's increased year over year?
It increased last year as well.
Right.
What I started in May to help cover for the predecessor, and there were some things that we had to adjust to meet the state law in accepting cases and reporting deaths. Some of the examples, we've met with local hospitals, and they were under a different impression of what was required to be, by law, to be reported to us, and then what we would accept. So we've cleaned some of that up and worked with them to do, update their policies and procedures, so that's some of it. Some of it, I can't say it's COVID-related, but I don't.
Have you had to do more autopsies? How many more autopsies have you had to?
We do about 4, so yes, because we've had,
my
so if you
question.
figure we have so far 200 this year, 40% of them on average are autopsies. We try not to do autopsies if we can, review
Okay.
medical records, but if we can't, it's about, on average, 40%. We were only budgeted this year for $190,000. If I recall correctly, we spent, last year, 200 and some. Let me pull it up here. And Bob, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on this. What I've got is last year we spent $237,000 and had a budget of, I'm sorry, yeah, but
200 cases this year. How much did you have this last year at this time?
last year, okay, so last year at this time, let me go back here. We had, so let me go back to where I've got the, last year at this time, we had 104 accepted cases, 184 we have right now. Well, yeah, that's a large
And then
increase.
this request that you have for $120,000, do you think that's going to cover you for the rest of the year?
No, I'll be back. I'm sure I will. If this trend keeps going, I projected us at almost 884 deaths reported is what I'm anticipating, and I don't know what the percentage is that we'll take and accepted, but if we take even 70% of that, then I'll have to come back for that. And then it just doesn't impact that, it also impacts like our transfer service for the body. I anticipate having to come back probably next month for that, because more bodies that get transferred, then the more it costs us. So those are just some examples that I'm finding.
Thank you.
I have a question. Of your 184, your 200 you've already done this year, how big a staff you got?
I don't have a very big staff. It hasn't changed in 20 years. I'm working with my budget reps, or council reps and the commissioners. I've already submitted to 2 full-time employees so we can work more efficiently with records, more efficiently with getting our death certificates. You know, our families that touch us, we want to make it as easy as possible to get what they have done and the paperwork, and we're just drowning in paperwork. We just can't keep up. I've got 2 part-time staff that are trying to help. I'm trying to get it through, so anticipate me coming back.
So an autopsy requires someone to do an autopsy? I mean, how many hours is involved, just one individual?
In an autopsy?
Yeah.
It'll last, well, just the autopsy itself, it can last 2 hours, but that goes in, that's what we pay out of our autopsy fee, and then there's an assistant, and then, of course, the deputy needs to document what's going on. So if you look at natural cases, I would average about 4 hours on average that a deputy spends on a case. If it's accidents, anything but a homicide, suicides, things like that,
Right.
it can be 8 hours on average, and homicides can be up
I guess
to
I've never
100.
really understood or never asked the question. So do you personally do autopsies?
I do not. I do not.
So
We
we
contract
far-
with the forensic pathologist.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I can't think of, there may be 2, 3 coroners in the state of Indiana that do their own autopsies.
I always thought that you folks did them yourselves. So, okay.
Any other questions?
Just as a comment, that Ben and I are working closely with Carrie, and they've been very convincing. Ben and I have been working very closely with Carrie, she said, and she is developing a 5-year plan. I mean, you can't predict these things as we see the trends. We can look at as many trends as we want, and historical data. It is what it is. We're a growing community. They're doing what they can do and developing plans. So yes, we will be back for more things to come this year.
Okay.
I will also add that Coroner Casella has also modified some of her practices, and so that the revenue that she has brought in has already exceeded what was budgeted for this year. So she is trying to save money on that end than what was done previously. So to her credit, she's trying to become more efficient and look for alternative ways to bring money in to try and offset a little bit of the outgoing.
Yes, that's a great point. We've worked with it, we've got a grant for, I think it was like $5,000, pretty close to equipment that was never taken advantage of before, so we took care of that. I'm working with Sharon. I sent her another grant opportunity just yesterday that we may be able to take advantage of, and I got something else today that I'm looking at. So we're hunting. We're not in the money-making business, but I'm trying to find some funds to help support this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Next up, we have Do It, additional appropriation.
I'll make the motion, we approve for Do It General Fund 1,000 appropriation in the amount of $75,345.
I second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Dolam, to approve the additional appropriation for the Do It for $75,345. Comments? Welcome, Ken.
Good morning.
Morning.
So there's 2 positions here. The first is Unified Communications Engineer. This individual will be responsible for phone systems for the AV equipment across the county, such as this equipment in the Tippy room. The new recording systems in the courthouse will be theirs. This person will also serve as a backup for our network administrator. Right now, we have one individual who's in charge of our network, not just county side, but also public safety side. So if he would get hit by a bus, the proverbial bus, there would be nobody. This person would step into that role and fill that. The second position is an additional service desk technician. Going back to 2003, we had 3 technicians and 350 desktop computer licenses. Currently, we've got about 827 desktop licenses, and still just those 3 positions trying to maintain all of those. So we've more than doubled, closing in on tripling the desktop capacity. And that's not counting all the smartphones and tablets that we've added in. So it's about time to add another position to cover those.
Okay. Comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Next, we have the salary statements for those positions that Kent spoke about.
I'll make a motion, we approve the Do-It 2021 salary statement for the positions that were just discussed.
Second that.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Dolam to approve the 2021 salary statements for the two positions that we just discussed. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have committee reports. Anything on that anybody has? Pretty quiet there. Just a reminder on the dates for budget hearings and our public hearing meeting related to the budget. Any new or unfinished business that we need to attend to this morning?
I need to share some thoughts and an announcement with you. As you may know, my full-time employer is a California-based biotech company for whom I've worked since 2017. When I started with them, we were privately held. In 2018, we went public. 2019, after some early successes, the company released results on a clinical program for which I direct that were good, but it really launched us into a new level of size and intensity. Going then into the end of 2019, early 2020, I was concerned about my ability to serve this position due to the demands of my job. Then the pandemic hit, and I didn't travel for 14 months, and while it wasn't easy for any of us to get through the pandemic, it provided some relief for me from a time standpoint. Now that we're post-pandemic, things have begun to intensify again. My organization has increased fourfold, and the program that I manage is continuing to grow. Travel has started again, and the requirements of me for supporting that are beyond that which I can continue to support my work here on council. I love this community. Working with you and your predecessors on council, Bob, Jennifer, the commissioners, all the elected officials and department heads is just an absolute honor. But I don't feel going into this budget season I will be able to serve the needs adequately the way I know how to do them. So I'm regretfully announcing my resignation from council effective June the 30th of this year in hopes that we can bring someone on board prior to budget season and serve the position well. So I'll continue to stay very active between now and the end of June. I will do all I can to help with the transition to whomever fills the seat, and I want to thank you each again for all the support and collegiality over all these years.
Thank you, Roland.
You bet.
Hate to see you go, and appreciate your service very, very much. Your thought process has been extremely valuable as we've gone through the last several years, so appreciate that. Any other unfinished or new business that we need to, we're going to get there. Commissioner FYI, nothing. I know public comment from Sharon. She's got an item that we had emailed to us, so. She remembered the microphone. Yes, good morning.
I hope you all received the email I sent to you last night. I hate to come up at the last minute and ask for your permission to do this transfer within series as well as a transfer between series. But we received funding in March of last year for $100,000 from the OKRA to provide medical assistance and food from our health department, and they did not spend all the money. So last week, the commissioners sent a modification letter to OKRA and asked for permission to submit some more the remaining fundings to the small businesses in the community. We received the letter and approval of that modification, and they would like to get the money out the door by the end of May. Therefore, I need your permission to do these transfers so that the funds can be in the right object code so that we can get the money to these small businesses in a timely manner. Again, I apologize for coming at the last minute. I appreciate your consideration. I've attached the grant. Obviously, the one copy you have was unsigned, but it did get signed by the state yesterday. So the grant's all approval. It shows that there'll be $15,000 spent in the public services, so the health department still has a little bit of funds they can spend. And the $85,000 will be used for economic development through the small business loans. We're adamant on finding these businesses that need the funds in the next week. We're hoping to have applications wrapped up by the 17th, and then we can get a review committee together before the end of that week, and then therefore we can have the funds out the door by the end of the month. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Sharon? So the transfer is from institutional medical to other professional services?
Correct.
In the amount of $60,016?
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
Oh, I'll make a motion with what you just said.
And I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilman Richard to approve the transfer for the Health Department of the $60,016 from the institutional medical to other professional services. Any other discussion related to that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved.
Thank you, and I would like to invite you out to East Tippy Middle School tonight at 6 p.m. when we have our IDEM discussion about the ABC Regional Sewer District.
Where's that? East Tip.
East Tip Middle School.
Hey.
East Tip, I'm not from this
Sharon.
county.
Hey, Sharon, we have one of these that's signed by Kayla, right? Okay, good. Okay, all right.
Anything else for the good of the cause here this morning, or any other public comment? If not, I'll take the last motion. Roland.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.